Let's go through what you're going to do for week 6. All right, week 6. The semester is moving fast. Let me change over my screen. I'll do screen 1. And I've got that Word document there. Hopefully you are seeing that. Let me zoom in. Okay, week 6. Cycling. We did swimming last week in week 5. We'll do cycling kinetics this week. And gosh, we'll do running kinetics next. So, and then we'll actually do an editor, we'll repeat and we'll go back through some additional information. So we're trying to tackle each of these sports. And hopefully you start to see some of the common ways that we look at each sport. All right, so we're in the Watch Me First video. I did do as I just mentioned, a week 6 pep talk, right? Yeah, every now and then we need a pep talk, but I just give you a little bit, I share a little bit of philosophy with you regarding teaching and being in the class and trying to learn for the sake of learning. Okay, so hopefully you'll enjoy that. And I keep saying this is an upper division class, so it is a little bit different than a 100 or 200 level class, where we are trying to really get you're working closer to your end of your degree and your whether it's a bachelor's degree or maybe your master's degree or maybe even your PhD. All right, cycling kinetics. So identifying all the forces acting on the bike rider system. Go through that video. You might need to go through it a couple times. Make sure you have the notes in front of you so you can write the additional pieces of information down. But really important process of identifying the forces acting on the bike rider, because that sets up everything else we're going to talk about. So now, after you watch that video, the next 3 videos are about the forces that are in the kinetic analysis. So some of the forces, but really rolling resistance. Really, the next one is probably more drag force, I should have called it, but I really focused in on CDA and then slope force. Now, slope force, and I do say this a couple of times in a couple of videos, I'm really presenting slope force as if we're biking uphill. The reason is that that becomes a resistance force, and we know biking uphill is harder than going downhill. Well, the downhill part, slope force is actually a propulsive force. So, and I don't know, I just don't find myself working towards addressing that. But there are some downhill biking competitions, but just a little different in terms of training for an event going downhill versus uphill. And there is some neat physics that we really need to account for, and we really work on our fitness to try to go uphill and generate force to move ourselves or move the bike upwards. And then the next video is cycling power. Power is rate of work being done. And a lot of cyclists and triathletes have power meters on their bikes. And I go through why we want to know power as an athlete or a coach. All right. And all right, so those are your nuts and bolts presentations. That is the focus of content for exams. The next set of presentations, these are your applied presentations. So these, you want to continue to watch these as a way to try to start applying the concepts in the previous videos. So how do we use rolling resistance? How do we talk about drag force or slope force or power? These are good videos to watch and to make sure that you're understanding the concepts. If you watch these videos and you're not sure how we're using power or force or resistance, go back and watch some of these other videos then. Now, I also added in this presentation, I added in this link, which is a podcast I am doing with the Sports Research and Innovation Initiative that we're launching here at UNLV. And the whole goal of that initiative is to optimize health and maximize performance through innovation and education. Uh, and 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 so this becomes really big part of this class is that we're doing sports, endurance sports. We're talking about research, that's the empirical evidence, and we're doing some innovation. And part of your semester project, jump down here, is I want you to identify 2 innovation ideas related to your semester question. Now, eventually you're going to zero in on one that you're going to include in your presentation, but start with 2. You can write down more because the more you write down, the better you'll be able to have a family of ideas to narrow down to one that you're really going to be interested in presenting. All right, so now what's an innovative idea? It can be almost anything. So that's a wonderful thing, is that you have lots of flexibility. It's a terrible thing because you have lots of flexibility and sometimes it's hard to make decisions. I talk a little bit about my attempt to restore a vintage trailer, and I have a phrase that I use: paralysis by analysis, in that I sometimes just get stuck overthinking, well, not overthinking, but thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking and rethinking and analyzing, doing, and then I just get stuck. All right. And then I have to get out of that paralysis of analyzing, and I got to make a decision and then start, going forward. And then as I go forward, I still analyze and I say, oh, I did it wrong. Now I got to go back and do it again because I didn't realize this was such an important step. Well, that's the same thing here, is that we will identify lots of ideas. All right, I'm listing, 2 innovation ideas, 4 papers, 4 concepts, things like that. That's to, have a lots of different analyses, but then you're going to start bringing it down, and then you're going to zero in on uh, really specific information, including your semester project. So start with a couple of ideas, okay? And then we'll narrow it down to one. There's no right or wrong here. The innovative idea could be a product, it could be an app, it could be an idea, it could be software, it could be lots of different things. And that's why it's innovation, is because you're trying to innovate. To help sort of introduce that idea, this podcast actually ended up being really a good one to talk about the innovation, or the approach to innovating. And had 2 colleagues on this podcast, and they are creating a new type of bike rack. Now we go through the bike rack in a little bit, uh, but the bike rack's not so important. Listen to this podcast and listen to them explain how they came up with an innovative idea. The idea is an innovative bike rack. Okay, that's great. Don't focus on the bike rack. Focus on hearing what they have to say about how to innovate. And then this podcast is with Flow Cycling. We do some work with them. John Thorne, great guy, and he is a real innovator. And this is another great conversation to hear how he created a wheel company, why he created a wheel company, and how he continues to do things differently than others, and coming up with really innovative product ideas. And it's actually really exciting doing some work with him, because he just is really thinking very uniquely and coming up with some really neat ideas regarding cycling wheels, biking in general, even training and fitness. And so I hope you'll listen to that podcast and listen to the process of innovating. Now, I did add in a Zwift example because I start talking about Zwift in these presentations and later on. Zwift is a video-based trainer for cycling, where we use smart trainers. That's a device that you hook your bike up to that talks to the computer, and then you, in essence, are doing gaming while biking. And the harder you bike, the faster your bike goes in the game. And so I give a little bit of a sense of that program. There's other programs. Zwift is a very popular one. Ruvy's another one. And there's other ones as well. And just a short one, just to show you what that's like. And then I go through some power meter examples. I go down to my garage, I pull out some power meters and talk about different styles of power meters and why a cyclist or triathlete may pick one or the other. Okay, so I've got all those links in the module. I've got the notes here as well. I'll add the Watch Me First, and I'll add the week 6 pep talk to this. And hope you have a good week, and I'll check in with you. We will have another in-person session plan coming up. I'll post details for that later on. Okay, thanks everybody. Have a good week.